Hi everyone, I'm Dayna from Love AusYA, and I'm here with Kate Emery talking about her debut novel, The Not So Chosen One, which comes out the 5th of July, I believe it is, Kate. Is that right?
That is correct. Counting down now.
Yeah, not too long to go. So my first question, Kate, is just for people who haven't read it, what's it all about?
Well, I'll go carefully and try not to give away any spoilers because I hate that, like when you go to the movies and the trailer just tells you everything that's going to happen. But the premise is Perth high schooler, she's called Lucy, sort of page 1, chapter 1, she finds out that she's pregnant. This is not a good thing, as you'd probably imagine. And then on the same day, she finds out A, that magic is real, and B, she's been accepted into a magic school. And the rest of the book is sort of her experience juggling these two things, and things at magic school don't go maybe the way that she hopes they will. So yeah, that's the basic idea, a classic sort of, magic school kind of epic story.
Fantastic. And so, magic school, the obvious question for me was, what inspired you to write the story? And was there another magical school that inspired you to write this story?
Oh God, there are so many, magic schools. I mean, everyone always thinks of Hogwarts from Harry Potter, obviously. But one of the first sort of fantasy series that I ever read was Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea books. It was just a trilogy back then because this was in primary school. And now I've forgotten the name of the magic school, but the young guy, Jed, he gets sent off there. That was a very inspirational series. I absolutely love Lev Grossman's Magician series, which is Breakbills. That's so good. But I also think it's just one of those real wish fulfillment things where any kid who's sort of grown up reading a lot of fantasy books, or even just, into sort of chosen one stories like Star Wars, always has that sort of dream about how amazing it would be if your mundane life was going to become a lot less mundane. And it hasn't happened yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, we can but dream.
Give me time.
Yeah. And it really struck me as interesting, this pairing of something that is, I guess, maybe a feature more in contemporary fiction of unplanned pregnancy, and then pairing that with a magic school. How did you manage to get the spark to go, let's put those two together? Or what prompted that?
Yeah, that's a really fair question. I've had a few people, sort of friends, say, oh, did you have an unplanned pregnancy in high school that we don't know about? And that did not happen. But I think it was just sort of wanting to combine these two, like catastrophe is not the right word, these two huge, big things, and the idea of someone who's struggling on the one hand with this sort of magical dilemma that we'd all sort of love to have, like how do you handle magic school, and this other real world kind of dilemma that lots of people that age would not like to have. And so, yeah, I just sort of wanted to and perhaps to add a little bit of real world stakes to what's, a pretty sort of lighthearted in some respects and sort of fantastical story.
Yeah. And now you're a journalist by trade. What was it like writing a novel as opposed to very factual stories?
It was brilliant. You don't have to, fact check. You don't have to, call up people who don't want to talk to you necessarily on the phone. It was really fun. I actually wrote the first draft a couple of years ago when I was on maternity leave with my daughter, because I suddenly wasn't working, and so I wasn't writing during the day. And I felt like I really had sort of creative energy that I wanted to get out, and I missed doing writing. And so, I sort of wrote the draft while she was napping pretty much. And it was so much fun. But I've, like most sort of authors, I've probably, written all my life, but it was just a real blast.
Yeah, excellent. And now The manuscript won the 2020 Text Publishing Prize as well.
Sadly, it was only shortlisted.
Oh,
but
shortlisted. It was shortlisted for that. So I wondered
right.
if you could tell me a bit more about that process of applying for the prize. What that was like in the process of producing the book, and how it contributed to being published.
It was such a funny sort of spur of the moment decision to enter. I think I must have been online, probably on social media, and I saw an ad for the Text Prize for young adult fiction, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And I had this manuscript that I'd sort of taken out again and had a look at reasonably recently, but it was just sort of going to sit on a USB drive and do nothing. And it never actually occurred to me that the book was young adult for some reason, even though it was all about like high school kids. And I thought, oh, maybe I could enter that. And so I think I probably had maybe about a month. And so I sat down, I sort of read through the manuscript. I went through, I thought that I tightened it up a lot. As it happened, after I was shortlisted, when I went back and read it, I was a little bit embarrassed by some of the bits where people would sort of change names, they'd change ages. There were a couple of plot lines I didn't quite get around to wrapping up. But obviously, Text saw something beneath the sort of muddle of the manuscript. They saw a good story, if only I could sort of prune away the rest. And so, yes, they called me up, told me I was shortlisted. It was very exciting. This was actually during the 2020 lockdown. So I was extremely, bored and a little bit restless. So it was really exciting. And then it was quite a long process. After that, I think maybe a month or two after that, I got a call saying, well, the bad news is you haven't won the prize. The good news is we want to offer you a book deal anyway. And so that for me was pretty much the dream, because that's what I wanted anyway. And then it was just a process of having to cut down the book. It was about 90,000 words, and it ended up being closer to 60,000. So it's quite a big change. A few tweaks here and there, cutting away plot lines and stuff that the more I looked at it weren't necessary. And then it was all done, and now it's going to be out in the world.
Wow. And so as part of that book deal was that, I think you mentioned in the acknowledgements working with your editor. So was that also through Text? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it was actually a slightly unusual situation. So Samantha Forge was the editor who sort of signed me on. And she was and still is lovely. She has not passed away. But in the middle of this process, she left Text. I'm assured it was nothing to do with my book. She's very lovely and still in touch. And so I had another editor take over at Text, which is Ian C., who is also extremely lovely. And so he's done the bulk of gently suggesting to me that maybe I don't need to use the same word 50 times in this paragraph, and possibly I need to learn how to use a comma and things like that have just been really made it a much better book.
Fantastic. And so do you have plans to write other books in the future?
Oh, obviously. I have semi-recently finished another book. I haven't shown it to my editor yet. I thought I'd get number one out of the way. But I mean, who knows if it will ever see the light of day, but definitely, I mean, I just always have that sort of drive to have a creative outlet, even now that I'm, not on maternity leave and back at work. It's just a whole different sort of energy, without sounding too much of a hippie. It's a different energy to doing journalism. It's just, lots of fun. It's sort of what I do in my spare time when I can sneak away from the kids, or, when I get a nice little holiday. We'll definitely keep writing things, and whether they're any good or not, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I really think that people will enjoy the Not So Chosen One. I certainly did. Well, thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciated talking to you. And as I said, really appreciated the Not So Chosen One. I definitely encourage everyone to go out and pick up a copy on the 5th of July, shortly after, and get stuck into it. It's a great tale.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It was lovely to chat.